Hello and welcome to India First, your fortnightly window to the world of strategic affairs, diplomacy and defense. Events of the past couple of months have imposed a strain on India-China relations. The stress is largely induced by China's enhanced and closer relationship with Pakistan. Beijing, alarmed by perceived India-US tango in Asia, is now openly using Pakistan as its proxy against India. Pakistan is now more or less completely dependent on China for its nuclear program. More than 50% of Pakistani military hardware is sourced from China. More dangerously for India, this increases the possibility of the much talked about two-front war against India. So how should India deal with the increased threat? What options can India exercise? To discuss various scenarios, we have two very eminent China watchers. To my extreme left, Major General B.K. Sharma, who is the Deputy Director of the USI of India, and to my immediate left, Dr. Shrikant Kondapalli, who heads the China Study Center at the JNU, the Jawaharlal Nehru University. Welcome both of you. May I start with General Sharma? What do you think is the state of the collusive threat that China and Pakistan pose to India?
See, this Pakistan-China strategic nexus is India's biggest strategic challenge, and it manifests at different level. Politico-diplomatic level, where we've seen that the total alignment of their positions, recently the UN resolution against terrorism in Pakistan. Second is the stand that they took on India's entry into the NSG, and many more other instances which the viewers are well versed with. At another level, that is mostly at the economic level, we have seen that the China-Pakistan economic corridor is now getting traction, and it has major strategic and security implications for India. At the third level, we know that, as you brought out in your program, that 50% of the military hardware to China is being supplied, to Pakistan is being supplied by China. In addition to that, most of their military and civil nuclear program is actually inherited from China. Added to this are now other dimensions which are emerging, and that is joint patrolling along Pakistan-Xinjiang border, heightened joint military exercises, and maybe in due course of time, when this Karakoram highway becomes little more operational, we'll see more military activities actually taking place in the very close proximity of a border and line of control. And India has to factor this into overall strategic security calculus. Maybe I'll be talking about it a little more. And it has also assumed a maritime dimension, that the Gwadar as a deep water port now, Chinese would be operating it for next 40 years.
That's
and
right.
that will have its own implications, political as well as security implications for India.
We'll talk in detail about those threats, but I want to turn to you, Shrikant. You're a long watcher of the Chinese spread along Asia, and of course China has a lot of influence in Southeast Asia, and of course now it's got its tentacles in South Asia, if I may. But Pakistan remains key to its presence in South Asia. How do you see this strategic kind of tango between Pakistan and China?
Once the 1963 border treaty was signed between the two sides, they now have what is called an all-weather friendship. And the Karakoram highway, which formed that part of the all-weather friendship, is now being revamped to about 30 meters wide, and nearly 4 bylanes are being constructed with possibility for airfields and other infrastructure. So the CPEC, as General Sharma had mentioned, the China-Pakistan economic corridor, today provides for much more sustenance to the all-weather friendship between the two sides. Short of being allies, both have elevated to a substantial level. With the President Xi Jinping's visit to Islamabad in April last year, they have announced the $46 billion investment in the hydroelectricity projects in Pakistan occupied Kashmir, Gilgit-Baltistan, and the Gwadar port construction and the highways and the other infrastructure. They also, in principle, accepted the railway project passing through Kashgar to Islamabad and further down.
Right.
For basically getting copper mine resources from Balochistan and other places. So it's a comprehensive kind of package the Chinese have sold to the Pakistanis. This is one reason. Second, obviously, there is the connectivity to West Asia and to the Arabian Sea and then to the Indian Ocean region. Gwadar port, for instance, overlooks something like 47% of the trade passing through the Persian Gulf, through the Arabian Sea and the Indian Ocean. So in a way, maritime aspects are also a part of that design. Thirdly, in terms of the Chinese role there is previously they used to get a lot of American technologies from Pakistan, the F-16s and the various other technologies. So it used to be a conduit for this. While the United States today had dehyphenated Pakistan from India, China is actually doing the hyphenation more in a concerted way. And this is where India is concerned with, especially the area that they are operating, not just in the commercial, as President Xi Jinping mentioned after India protested, but also in the semi-military areas like the 30,000 public security forces which are now included in that area physically, and the kind of military backup that is necessary for that suggests that there is also a grand design for positioning troops permanently in that region between India and Pakistan.
So, General Sharma, since both of you agree on the kind of grand design that China has vis-a-vis Pakistan, how much of it is driven just for helping Pakistan, and of course also putting India in a bit of a bother? What is the kind of proportion you would think? Is it just for charity with Pakistan that they're doing, or that they're doing it deliberately?
See, a country like China doesn't do any charity.
Exactly.
They have a mercantilist foreign policy which is totally national interest driven. So I would say it is, killing two birds with one stone. It helps them in sort of, through Pakistan, reach out to the Islamic world, West Asia, mitigate their so-called Malacca dilemma to a large extent, and at the same time sort of consolidate on their policy of restraining India, to keep it in the South Asian orbit, put the millstone of Pakistan around your neck and keep you pinned down here. So I would say it's a two-pronged strategy. There are lofty economic interests, and there is that overarching policy of restraining China into the South Asian orbit and get you fixated.
So it's geostrategic also. It's geostrategic, and it's a long-term kind of a strategy. And the old saying that the friendship is higher than Himalayas, deeper than the Indian Ocean, and what sweeter than honey.
Sweeter than honey, and stronger than steel.
Stronger than steel is something that they do. So, but as we go along, and as this presence of the Chinese troops, Chinese engineers, Chinese investment grows, Pakistan is more or less like a client state now of China. What it used to be with the United States is now with China. What other implications, geostrategic and geo-economic implications, are there for the Central Asian region, let's say, or for Afghanistan? How do you see that panning out? Apart from the threat to India, how does it pan out as far as Afghanistan is concerned?
Well, on the charity portion first, the United States and Saudi Arabia did give a lot of money to Pakistan. If you look at the Chinese investments in or aid to Pakistan, none of these is in terms of bridging the current account deficits of Pakistani budget. With terrorism and the expenditure and the spending on the army, Pakistan needed a lot of finances which were not forthcoming from China. China was very careful on that front. And so their main aspect is in terms of investment in also in grabbing some territories. There is a lot of information from Gilgit and Baltistan that China is actually grabbing a lot of territories there in the garb of hydroelectricity projects and others. So the cost actually is mounting on Pakistan.
On Pakistan, really. I need to take a break here at this point, but we'll soon come back. Don't go anywhere.
अवध की तहजीब में जल्द ही दस्तक देगी नए दौर की रफ्तार लखनऊ मेट्रो की शक्ल में। और इसकी जरूरत की शिद्दत को महसूस किया उत्तर प्रदेश के मुख्यमंत्री अखिलेश यादव ने। बढ़ती आबादी के साथ ट्रैफिक जैम से जूझते लखनऊ के लिए मेट्रो से बेहतर समाधान और क्या हो सकता है।
तो सिटी इज ग्रोइंग। इस सिचुएशन में जो रोड्स हैं वो इस टाइप का ट्रैफिक हैंडल नहीं कर पाएंगे, एक लिमिट तक करती हैं, उसके बियॉन्ड नहीं कर पाती।
लखनऊ एक ऐसा शहर है जहां संस्कृति के साथ धड़कता है इतिहास भी। और क्या अनोखा नजारा है ये कि गुजरे दौर की दास्तानें कहते आलमबाग और चारबाग के पास से गुजर रही है मॉडर्न मेट्रो की ट्रैक। पूरे लखनऊ में 34 किलोमीटर के मेट्रो रूट में होंगे लगभग 33 स्टेशन, जिनमें शामिल हैं चौधरी चरण सिंह हवाई अड्डे से लेकर चारबाग रेलवे स्टेशन, हजरतगंज, लखनऊ यूनिवर्सिटी, अमीनाबाद, मेडिकल चौराहा जैसी अहम जगहें।
मेट्रो एक बहुत अच्छी सोच है जो अखिलेश यादव प्रोवाइड करने जा रहे हैं। हम लोग आलमबाग से लेके हजरतगंज तक ट्रैवल करते हैं, उसके लिए बहुत आसानी होगी, ट्रैफिक कंजेशन बहुत कम हो जाएगा।
अगर मेट्रो बन गई तो हमारी सिटी का और नाम रोशन होगा।
लखनऊ विल हैव ए वर्ल्ड क्लास मेट्रो सिस्टम, एक न्यू फॉर्म ऑफ ट्रैवल टू द कम्यूटर्स।
लखनऊ के बाद मुख्यमंत्री अखिलेश यादव का इरादा है कि अल्ट्रा मॉडर्न मेट्रो का तोहफा वाराणसी, आगरा, कानपुर और मेरठ के लोगों को भी दिया जाए।
मुथूट फाइनेंस, भारत का नंबर 1 भरोसेमंद फाइनेंस डाइवर्सिफाइड ब्रांड, जो आपको देता है भारत का सबसे बढ़िया गोल्ड लोन, यानी सबसे बढ़िया ब्याज दर, सबसे अधिक लोन राशि, घर बैठे ऑनलाइन गोल्ड लोन की सुविधा, ऑनलाइन इंटरेस्ट का भुगतान करें, कॉल करें 1800-120-2838।
8 से हाईवेज हो या आय से इंडिया की रेल, सारे देश का इंजन हम ही तो चलाते हैं। HP लुब्रिकेंट्स A to Z आपके काम आते हैं।
नहीं यार, अब ये रैगिंग बिल्कुल बर्दाश्त नहीं हो रही है, कंप्लेन तो करनी पड़ेगी।
तू पागल हो गई है क्या? सीनियर से पंगा लेगी तो तेरा और बुरा हाल करेंगे।
नो यार, हेल्पलाइन नंबर है, आई एम श्योर दे विल हेल्प।
हेल्पलाइन नंबर से कभी किसी को हेल्प नहीं मिलती।
एटलीस्ट वी शुड ट्राई।
आपकी थोड़ी सी हिम्मत और एक कंप्लेन की वजह से आपको रैगिंग जैसी बीमारी से छुटकारा मिल सकता है। यूज हेल्पलाइन, इट हेल्प्स।
Welcome back. You're watching India First, your fortnightly window to strategic affairs. We were speaking about the Chinese problems or Chinese making Pakistan a client state. How does it pan out as far as Afghanistan is concerned? I'll come back to Dr. Shrikant, but if you can shed some light there.
You see, Chinese tried their level best to sort of rope in Pakistan to have a breakthrough with Taliban. That's how they become part of that quadrilateral coordination group. But I don't think that experiment is succeeding because there are far too many complications in Pakistani dealing with different factions of Taliban. And we know how Mansoor was bumped off, you know, why he was killed and what happened to many other Taliban leaders. To my mind, I've been not very recently to Mazar-e-Sharif, and my sense is that there is a degree of frustration which is set in Chinese as far as their forays into Afghanistan are concerned. They've not been able to do much with that ionic copper mine. That investment has gone haywire. Similarly, they were prospecting oil in the northern Amu Darya. That is not actually fructified. And I have seen at the emotional level, people of Afghanistan do not gel well with the Chinese. And this reconciliation is not making much headway. Therefore, I would say to a large extent, Chinese have reached nearly a dead end as far as Afghanistan is concerned.
Do you agree, Shrikant?
I think so. I think they have initiated the Istanbul process, where they started investing a lot in the reconstruction efforts, but it has not really paid off well. As for instance, the Aynak copper mine, they suddenly found some archaeological findings beneath, and so the whole thing was stuck in this. Secondly, the other infrastructure projects they have planned to build, none of these have actually fructified, partly because while there were about 7 attacks on Indian installations and people, 4 times the attacks on Chinese took place so far.
So the Pakistani friendship hasn't really helped them as far as working in Afghanistan is concerned.
Indeed, they tried the Afghan, Pakistan, China trilateral, and they also tried the quadrilateral with the United States, but none of these actually are working.
Yes, but to come back to our main issue about how to deal with the China-Pakistan strategic tango, how should India deal with it? How would you how would Indians deal with it?
See, it's a strategic challenge and we have to deal with this. Now, to my mind, what is it that how do we balance it?
Right.
You know, and we have already got certain policies that are going on. For example, if we are able to vigorously implement our Act East policy on one level, and secondly, if we are able to operationalize Chabahar, Ziranj, Delaram, access to Central Asia, and early operationalization of North-South corridor, then we would reduce dependency of Afghanistan on Pakistan, and at the same time we would also get an entry into the Eurasian strategic space and into Southeast Asia. Similarly, we got to do a lot within South Asia. You know, while India has an advantage of accessing Eurasia through Iran, Pakistan doesn't have that advantage of accessing rest of South Asia unless it passes through the Indian territory. So within the SAARC, I think we should go for regional integration.
Sub-regional integration.
Sub-regional integration, like you have BBI and such like other initiatives. We should consolidate on that. And probably maybe isolate Pakistan at that level. At a much higher strategic level, India has very clearly espoused that it wants access to global commons, and it strongly advocates, you know, navigation through the international waters. And there is a strong convergence of our interests with Japan, Vietnam, US, and Australia. And we should have our interests played out in the Western Pacific, so that we have a concert of democracies there which are guided by the overall international law, and be a player there without being strategic outreach. And these are some of the ways. At the same time, we could also offer certain incentives to Chinese. There is a tremendous scope for investment within India's infrastructure sector and many other sectors, as long as we are able to address the trade imbalance which is in India's against India, and at the same time create incentives and safeguards for China to invest into our infrastructure sector. Probably their dependency on Pakistan will get reduced to a large extent.
Shrikant, I think what the points that he has made are very valid, but should India play the South China Sea card? I mean, apart from whatever else, and we will talk about that, but right now South China Sea is the hot topic, and the Chinese are on a little bit of on the back foot because of the arbitration ruling. Do you think India should make forays into South China Sea and sort of play the Chinese card, which in turn comes into Indian Ocean frequently?
South China Sea is quite vital for India. 55% of our trade is passing through that region, and so there is no way we can ignore. I think we should start the naval expeditions from this year on, after learning experience from the 4 ships which were dispatched from May to July this year. We need to have, because South China Sea is also reporting 50% of the global piracy incidents, so according to the International Maritime Organization statistics. So in other words, we have a role to play in South China Sea, both in trade, energy related, also in a geostrategic aspects. If we do not secure the South China Sea lanes, it will have also an impact on the Indian Ocean region. So there is a lot of necessity for us to go there and bilaterally with Vietnam, with Philippines, Malaysia, and concerned states, Singapore as well, Indonesia, with whom we have good relations in the maritime domain. Also, as the space tracking station is going to be established in Vietnam, we have to have some larger linkages with that region, telecommunication wise and so on. So it is, South China Sea is quite vital. Since global trade is mainly through the maritime domain, this is where we need to emphasize more on.
And India needs to strengthen its naval power anyway.
Indeed. So the Malabar exercises, for instance, which were conducted last month, are in this region closer to Japan. It's a right move in the direction of securing our sea lanes of communications and trade and a lot of other, because we have also had investments in Sakhalin in Far East, in addition to the 128 block in Vietnam held areas of South China Sea. With Philippines as well, we need to explore more. In the joint statements, we did mention this as a West Philippine Sea rather than South China Sea. So there is a lot, as Prime Minister's visit to Hanoi shortly will indicate. We have the $100 million credit line for Vietnam. There is also the Haiphong and Natrong permanent berthing rights that we secured from Vietnam. There is a lot that we need to do in the maritime domain. So South China Sea is quite vital.
It's quite important. I'm running out of time. So just one thought, 30 seconds. The threat is real, the China-Pakistan Nexus, but India is capable enough to meet that threat.
Yes, we are very much competent to meet that threat at all levels, political, diplomatic and even military. So only thing is that we should not get awed by this challenge as much and build up our own capacities and leverages to balance out. And I am sure the present government is moving in the right direction, and with a little bit of more, I would say, enthusiasm and will, national will, we should be able to address this issue quite comfortably.
Proper planning, I think, is required, isn't it? We need to grow economically and militarily both.
I suggest two aspects. One is we need to convince the Chinese that what they are doing in POK is not in the interest of India-China relations, because the Chinese have emphasized on core interests, which include sovereignty and territorial integrity, while on the other hand they are violating the 1993 Indian Parliament resolution on the Kashmir aspect. So at one level we need to convince China on the sovereignty issue. Second, we also need to highlight the terrorism aspect. The Chinese are also victims of that with the Al-Qaeda, Taliban and the other groups functioning in Xinjiang. We need to convince the Chinese in the counter-terror
that there is a common cause that they can make there. Right. In fact, there will be a lot of solutions offered, and I think India is in a position to deal with this threat that has emerged over the last 5-6 years. Although the nexus has been there for more than half a century, but India needs to be careful. It needs to plan very well. But certainly, if India can grow economically at a faster pace, and then of course militarily equip itself, and diplomatically then deal with the multiple challenges that this nexus poses, India will be in the right position to deal with what is now clearly a China-Pakistan nexus coming closer and closer to India. With that, we wrap up this program. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll be back in a fortnight's time. Thank you very much, both my co-panelists, Dr. Srikanth and General Sharma. We'll have more occasions to talk about this. Thank you and good night.